Hi, I'm Paul Haggis, director of Third Person, which opens here in Chicago June 27th. Thanks to RedEye for the interview, and look forward to seeing you.
Something you've said a few times that I find very interesting is that you're only happy if you're miserable when working on something.
It's kind of true, unless something really challenges me, unless I'm really working out through questions that I don't have the answers to.
So I was hoping you could go back and look at the movies that you've written and or directed and rank which ones made you the most to least miserable when you're working on them.
Gosh, I get miserable in every project. Crash was a tough one because I knew that I was going to present, as a writer, it was a real challenge because I knew I was going to present stereotypes in the beginning, but that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to say, okay, I'm going to present. You're in the dark theater. I'm going to reinforce every stereotype you've ever thought of anybody and say it's okay. Shh, I know you're a big liberal. Sit back, relax. Hispanics, they all park their cars on the lawn, right? And Asians don't know how to drive, and reinforce all these horrible things that somewhere in the back of my mind we think. But as soon as I was able to do that and make you comfortable, wasn't going to challenge you, then I could start twisting you around in your seat and make these characters contradict everything. And so that's what I tried to do with that. So that made me uncomfortable, knowing that it could be misunderstood. I had nightmares about that. $1 Million Baby, you've talked about a movie that's about girl boxing and euthanasia. So if any, I didn't think any audience would come to see that. Thank God Clint Eastwood stepped up to direct that and did a marvelous job. In The Valley of Ella, it was Tommy Lee Jones, Charlize Theron, but it was a movie about the war, and we were just a few years into the war at that time, and we just started when I started writing it, and I knew that America didn't want to see this movie. I knew they didn't want to be challenged about these things. Even liberals at that point were really supporting the war, and I said it's going to be impossible for me to get Americans to empathize with the Iraqis. I don't think we'll ever do that, but maybe they can empathize with their own men, women, the soldiers that are going over there trying to be heroes, doing the best they can, and seeing what happens to them. And so that was going to be a challenge, I knew. And the next 3 days, which I did with Russell Crowe, again, I'd never done that kind of form before. I really loved exploring a character in the middle of, I guess, a suspense thriller or a caper or whatever kind of film that is, and get crawling inside that guy's mind and asking questions. What would you do for love? How far would you go?
Can you also rank a lot of these movies, not exactly super happy experiences for the audience either? Rank those movies in terms of the misery of the viewer.
Oh, I don't know I can do that. I remember after I wrote $1 Million Baby, I remember my wife at the time said, she wouldn't speak to me for a week. She said, you have to change the ending. I said, I can't. And then a week later she went, yeah, of course you can't. So I do love torturing people. But this one, I wanted to both celebrate love and, ask some really hard questions about it, and about, how you get what you want in a relationship, or how you are doomed to fail. And so I was lucky enough to explore that in 3 different stories here, and also explore the nature of creativity. As writers, we're incredibly selfish. And I was from the beginning of my career to the end. It's any career you dedicate in order to be successful. You dedicate so much time to it, and other people often pay the price for that selfishness. And of course, if you're living with a writer, you might find yourself on screen or at some time or other. So I wanted to explore some of the questions that troubled me about being a writer and how we use the people around us.
Well, I like that in that creativity, it seems like you sort of enjoy doing things that you think people might not be comfortable with, or they might not like. I'm kind of waiting for you to make your movie Justin Bieber National Treasure.
You might wait for a while. Yes.
Well, that would be something that people would find challenging.
Yeah,
they
true.
might not like it at first.
It's true. Okay, I'll give that serious thought.
Well, what do you feel like you don't understand about relationships? Why did you have to do this?
So many things. And some of the questions I posed in this is, okay, you get some. How do you love an impossible person? I'm an impossible person, and I've been in love with some impossible people. And what do you do? If they change for you, if they're willing to open up and be vulnerable and really trust you, do you just automatically betray them? Is that just part of the game? Is it all? Is
Why?
love a
Why
game?
would that be?
Because
part
love
of
is
the
a game. Just getting them sometimes. Just you find someone who won't love you, who has all this armor, etc. So if I can get under that armor, if I can get through those defenses, maybe I'm worth something. It reflects on us. And then once you get it, do you want it? Once the game is finished, and it's a very cynical view. But that's one. The other one was a much more romantic view. If you decide to trust someone who's totally untrustworthy, if you start to believe in someone who doesn't even believe in themselves, does love itself, change them? Is love transformative? And
you've talked a lot about that, and I found it interesting because this is certainly not in the context of love, but I was imagining myself going to a dangerous neighborhood, going to someone I should not trust, and being like, look, I know that I shouldn't trust you.
Exactly.
We've never met before.
And
you have a gun.
Yeah.
And be like, can you rise to my challenge? I think
Yeah.
you'd be like, no, I'm going to shoot you.
It's but the braver you are in love, usually the more it pays off. And the more you try to protect yourself, the more likely you are to lose. And the more you try to change the other. I mean, the third story is about the James Franco and Mila Kunis story is a man who just knows his wife has done something, and he's trying to get her to look at it, trying to force her to face her own demons. And if you do that, if you hold up a mirror to somebody, say, look, this is you. Look at this. Come on, look at this. Face this. Who's reflected in that mirror? You or them? Who's and does that work? Does damning someone actually work, or are you doomed to lose in that?
Sure. James Franco said that he was willing to play anyone in this movie. How tempted were you to assign him the Olivia Wilde role?
Luckily, Olivia was already in that. So, no, as I sent the script, and this is early in the process, and I just cast Liam and Olivia, and I sent her the script because I love working with actors over and again. I loved working with James. He did a very small role for me in the Valley Vella, and it was wonderful. And so I sent that, and I said, he said yes. I said, which role? He said, I don't care, man, you pick. And I said, how about the artist? He said, great. He loves digging in, and he.
You didn't let him know that had the timing been different, he could have run down a hallway naked.
That'd be fun having him run down a hallway naked, wasn't it? Wasn't she charming in that scene?
What's not to like?
Yeah, no, but she is. But it's not. Everyone thinks, oh my God, you get a nude scene is going to be.
Well, since it's usually Liam Neeson trying to get a kid back, I thought maybe you were trying to switch the casting deliberately.
No, I didn't.
It seems like you are someone who would rather someone hate your movie as opposed to just kind of shrug it off.
Well, yeah.
But what's interesting to me is that you've both said that you want to challenge people and that you almost want that love-hate dynamic, but you've also said you're worried people won't understand this and that they won't like it. How do you reconcile those two statements?
That was the same with Crash. No, you have to be brave. You have to do. So I was really influenced by the filmmakers of the 60s and 70s. The Godard, Truffaut, Antonioni. And look at Antonioni's Blow Up, which is a film I loved. It starts out as a murder mystery. That's what you believe it is. 3/4 of the way through, he says, "Oh, we're going to have no answer to this ever. There is no answer to this crime." And by the way, the movie's going to end in a tennis game between mimes, and that's supposed to mean something. And you walk out of that theater going, "What did I see? What did it mean?" And it sticks with you. And I love those films where you go outside or you go to a bar or a restaurant afterwards and you argue with your friends. So this is a movie that you should bring at least 3 friends to it. So it's not a date movie; it's a double date movie.
How much of a success would you consider it if you released a movie that 80% of people hated?
If I loved it, I wouldn't care. We look at. I'm not Hitchcock. But look at Vertigo. Vertigo came out, and the critics panned it, and the audience ignored it, and it was released. It was removed for like 20 years. We couldn't see that movie because he was so disappointed. It is. We all believe now that it was his finest film. So sometimes films just don't hit at the time. Sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes they're just stinkers. No, I don't. Obviously, everybody wants to be universally loved. Who doesn't? But you have to be true to what you're trying to do, and that's what I'm doing here.
Speaking of that scene of Olivia running through the hotel naked, how many takes did you have to do for that?
She was fabulous, because if you approach something like that, and you're really nervous, then the crew is nervous around you, and you're not going to get. And this is a wonderful and romantic and comedic scene, and she approached it that way. I think she said something about she was standing there naked eating pieces of pizza that were passed out around the set. Of course, I sealed the set. Of course, I was respectful of that, and it was just.
You didn't go out on the street with a megaphone. Everyone, can I have your
Wilde
attention?
naked. But she stood there all the time. She's standing buck naked in front of him, and she's running, and she was fabulous to work with that way.
You didn't want to have her eating pizza in the scene while she was running?
That would have been fun too.
Is it disappointing that racism did not end after Crash came out?
It's very funny, because a lot of criticism I got at the time. In fact, I remember the Hollywood Reporter said something like, please, this is an old story. I mean, if this had been released 10 years ago, we'd call it brave or something, but we don't have these problems anymore. While I was reading that, there was a race riot at the Santa Monica High School. As liberals, we love to think we've solved all the problems because we're good people. And here I was calling the basic conceit of Crash is that it's liberals who have to really look at themselves. It's people like myself whose pride tells them that we're good people. Those are the people you should watch out for. It's not the obvious villains in life that you should be careful of. It's the ones who think they have everything worked out.
So who do you think was more upset about that movie than, liberals or conservatives?
I think liberals hated it more. Yeah.
Was that a surprise to you?
No, because that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to point the finger at me. That's all those characters are doing things that I have felt, or maybe haven't felt, but can imagine feeling. And no, I try to challenge myself. I don't try to challenge the audience. I try to challenge myself. And here, I wanted to say, okay, I'm not sure it's a good movie, but I think it's going to be a good social experiment. I'm gonna fuck with you here.